Welcome to the NBA Triple Double Show powered by SportsMemo. I'm your host, Ronald Cabang, also known as UCapper on SportsMemo.com and at U_Capper on Twitter. Today is Monday. It's $9 Monday, guys. We're going to talk about some promos here before we get into the slate. $9 Monday, every Monday. All picks and packages so far on the website will be just $9. Such a great deal, especially to start off the year, start off the week. We want to make sure we get the best bets going. Start off the week on a good note. We also have the 20%, 25% off entire cart code gift 25 that expires midnight on Christmas. 25% off your entire card with the promo code gift 25, and that's to celebrate obviously Christmas and the holidays here. And one last promo to talk about, it is college football bowl season, and we have a special here for you. $149 for every bowl game through the college football playoffs for $149. That expires on the 26th. Once again, that's a college football special there, $149 for all college football bowl games till the playoffs. Those are three great promos, and like I usually say on every show, you got to head to sportsmemo.com every day. There's always new deals, different deals. All the cappers have different, prices and sales that they go on every day as well, depending on what they have on the slate. So just head over to sportsmemo.com every day and check out what's going on. With that said, it's time to talk about some NBA games here. Let's bring on Joe and Matt. Guys, it was a pretty decent weekend. Obviously we had a lot going on. The NFL was great, both Saturday and Sunday. We had the World Cup. NBA was going on, college basketball. We had a lot of stuff going on this weekend. How did you guys do? Joe, let's start with you.
Well, Ronald, I was on a red hot streak in the NBA. As usual, this time of year is when I really turn it up. I lost one game. So no one wanted to put up one NBA game on Saturday. Lost a heartbreaker down in Mexico City with the Spurs, where I was ahead after the first period, the second period, the third period, went into the fourth, and then I took 8 and lost by 10. That's how it goes. I wasn't in love with anything else on Sunday, and do have something later we'll talk about in the NBA. But I only put out one bowl game the entire week, Fresno State. Very happy with that outcome. And, NFL is always going to be good to Joe D'Amico this time of year. But I do want to say I'm honored to be here on a Monday in my favorite time of year. Christmas is one of my favorite time of year. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate. It's just that time of year, Ronald, where people get a little nicer, weather gets a little colder. You have a little bit of rum inside those drinks or a little eggnog, and everybody's feeling good. But it is the time, is the time of year where we give the gift of giving. And, I love this time of year, and I love this time of year to spend with you and Moneyline Matt and everybody out there. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, as always, Joe, we love having you on here. You bring a lot of energy into this show here. I love it. Matt, how was your weekend?
Yeah, not a bad weekend once again. Definitely not like the 16-1-1 run. I will say that. On Thursday and Saturday, I actually started off pretty rough. We started 0-4 in the NFL. Bounced back yesterday, ended up going 5-0, so ended up having a 5-4 weekend. Still up around 6-7 units because I had a plus 210 parlay that just smashed. As for the NBA, I actually took a break this weekend. The weekends, I haven't really enjoyed betting on the NBA on the weekends, especially Sunday. So what I did was, our best bet on Friday, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over 30.5 points. That hit, and then I left it at that. So ready to get back on track here, talk some NBA, and I got some pretty good looks today, I think.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things here that we have to manage is really how we place our bets here with all the sports that's going on, really, right? You're focused on the NFL on the weekend. That's what you're hot there. Might as well just keep going, right? And then in the NBA, you go where you stick to what you know, and that's the props there, and you killed it. And then you were like, all right, well, the weekend's haven't been good for me, and you stay away. So you kind of go with the flow and see where things are happening for you, and just continue to ride that way. And same thing with me. I went low volume this weekend, 2-1 in the NBA, and the totals really have been what have kept me up. 17-5 so far. Sorry, 12-5 in my last 17 on total. So total's been really doing well for me, and I just want to keep going in that direction. Just get us back over the top here. So yeah, I think all of us here on the panel has just been kind of getting smarter as we go here in the holidays, and we just continue learning. We're always students of the game. I mean, at least I am. Just continue learning from other people. I gotta keep learning from guys like Joe, who's been in the business for so long. I mean, just talking about from his first show with us last week, we talked about lowering the volume and focusing in on what we know, and that's what we do, and we get a profitable weekend. So just continue learning from these guys. With that said, I think we talked about a lot of things here, but now let's talk about the NBA. First game up is the Raptors and Sixers. Raptors 13-7 on the season. They are coming off an outright loss to the Warriors at home. They're on a 5-game losing streak overall, including 3 at home where they've been playing pretty well. So it seems like they're going in the wrong direction here. They're not starting now they're starting off this tough 3-game road trip with the Sixers tonight. Then they got the Knicks and the Cavs, so they're even in conference opponents. Sixers 16-12. They're going in the opposite direction of Toronto. They're on a 4-game winning streak here. They're rested too. They haven't played since I think it was Thursday or Friday against the Warriors. This is their 5th game of a 7-game homestand as well. So they've just been chilling at home, relaxing while the Raptors are traveling here overnight. From an injury perspective, Otto Porter and Precious Achiuwa is out for Toronto. Gary Trent is questionable. And then Anunoby, right before the show, he was upgraded from out to questionable. And so we'll see how that goes. We don't know if he's going to play or not, but an upgrade on the day of usually is a sign that he might. And he's going to be a big addition, especially on the defensive side of the ball where they've been struggling a lot lately. On the Sixers side, they're slowly getting healthier, but Maxey is still out, and Korkmaz, I believe, is questionable tonight with the illness. Matt, how are you looking at this game? I think Philly's been on a little hot streak here. Do they continue going in that direction?
Yeah, so before I get into that real quick, I say shout out Fernando. Completely agree with the Lions. You know what I mean? The city's on fire right now. You got to love it. Appreciate you saying that. But for this game right now, to Ron's point, the Philadelphia 76ers have been playing far better basketball than that of the Toronto Raptors. 76ers have won 4 games in a row, all at home, and have played far better at home throughout the year. This is a 76ers team who was 11-5 straight up at home and 12-4 against the spread, and now faces a Raptors team who has lost 5 in a row, and 3 of those being at home. So kind of embarrassing. Again, I didn't know about the OG Anunoby news, so that's great. I actually do like hearing that because of the direction I am going. Gary Trent is also a game time decision. And this is a plus 7.5 spread for 2 teams who are actually 1-1 on the season. Both of those games were in Toronto, so a little bit different because this Raptors team is terrible on the road. They really are. They're 3-11 straight up, and they are 5-9 against the spread. And, even though this Raptors away record, straight up record against the spread record is far worse on the road, and the 76ers actually have a good home record against the spread, I'm still going to go with the Raptors here, plus 7.5. Not an official pick for me, but if I had to go a direction here, I think I would go with the plus 7.5. This is a team that just hasn't been playing great basketball. They have guys who can score. They have guys who can play pretty well defensively. And, I just think 7.5 is a lot of points. And I'm one of those guys where if you've played that bad and lost 5 games in a row, then I'm going to back you in your 6th because I think at some point you got to come out and play some solid basketball here. And I think it just might be on the road against the Philadelphia 76ers. This is a 76ers team that does tend to skid at times or just not play as good as basketball as you think they're going to play. And for me too, especially if OG Anunoby does suit up, I think he can help to limit someone like James Harden and slow him down and kind of break up their motion with himself and Joel Embiid. So because of that, I am going to side with the Raptors here. Again, not an official play for me, but if I were to give this a look, I think it would be the Raptors plus 7.5. I just think 7.5 is a lot of points with 2 teams that are very familiar with each other and a Raptors squad that is still pretty solid defensively. So if I were to go any direction, I think it'd be Raptors plus 7.5.
Yeah, to me, that makes some sense here. I was actually leaning towards the Sixers, but the points that you're making make sense, right? Because this is actually the largest number that they're being given here. 7.5 is the most they've been a dog so far this season. And as a dog of more than 3 points, they've covered each one of those games. So it makes sense that 7.5 could be a high number here. Joe, what are your thoughts on this one? Do you think the number is too high, or is Philly just too hot to handle right now?
Well, I'm the only thing that's too hot to handle. Let me tell you how I feel about this game. First of all, on the first family show this morning, even Matt and I were doing the show together, and we talked very briefly about the fact that last week the Miami Heat, I know we're not talking about the Heat, but the Miami Heat were fined $25,000 for fudging around, so to speak, with their injury report. The following day, you know what happened? They put 15 players on their injury report for the day. So I think they didn't learn their lesson. I think more than ever this season, we are seeing teams put up a boatload of guys on their injury report every day. So my advice to everybody out there, do your due diligence. Wait on a number. Be patient. Sports betting is not just about being aggressive when you get your number, being patient as well. There's a double-edged sword there. You got to be very, very careful. Having said that, I did my homework on this game about an hour and a half ago. Was not aware of some of the injury updates, but I'm going to stick to my guns no matter what. I'm not really crazy about laying big numbers with any team in the NBA currently. I mean, as I just mentioned, every morning we wake up and we see a laundry list of injuries in pro basketball, and it makes it a little more difficult to handicap, guys. However, I think we can all agree that streaks are something, at least that I put a little bit of stock in when touting pro basketball. While in this matchup, Toronto is sliding, Philly, as Ronald mentioned earlier in the preface, is soaring. The Raptors have lost and failed to cover 5 straight outings, while the Sixers are on a 4-game hot streak, both straight up and against the number. A few nights ago, the 76ers took down the Warriors 118-106 as a 9-point fave. By the way, they were without the services of several key cogs in the wheel. But 2 cogs that were on the floor that night were Joel Embiid and James Harden, and they lit it up. Well, the pair are expected on the floor again tonight, and this team is expected to see the return of a few missing players from a few nights ago. Guys, I just don't see the struggling Raptors squad contending in this matchup. During their current 4-game win streak, Philly is averaging over 128.7 points per game. Now, when you combine their surging offense with the league's 3rd-ranked defense, which they possess, I think it's going to be a very long night for Toronto. I don't see the Raptors putting up too many points here, and I don't see them slowing down the juggernaut, which is Joel Embiid and James Harden either. The Raptors, 0-4 ATS the last 4 games played on the road, 3-7 ATS the last 10 games played on 0 days rest. Oh, by the way, guys, FYI, 76ers, 11-0 ATS the last 11 where? At home, and 6-0 ATS the last 6 home games played versus teams with a losing road record. Matt did mention, even though he likes the other side, that the Raptors are not the greatest road team. I don't think they're due for a win. I think things are going to get worse for this team before they get better. Lay the points with the 76ers, folks, and take your bookmaker's money.
Yeah, I mean, I think going through the stats that you just brought up, Joe, a lot of them I brought up as well in my notes here. One thing that I did know was that even though they struggle on the road, especially as road dogs, 1-7 straight up, they are 4-4 against the spread. And earlier I mentioned what Matt said, with that being a large line. They covered each game where they were dogs of 3 or more. Dogs of more than 3 points, and 7.5 is a large number. And this is why this is the type of thing where I just stay away, because there's so many counter narratives as far as putting my actual money on it. I could always give a lean, right? We always have stats and records to tell us this is the right way to go, but with so many games on the board, you want to make sure you put your money on the game that you're most confident in. When you have counter narratives like this on both sides, that's one where you kind of just tend to stay away. So for me, that's the way that I'm going to go. I'm going to stay away from it, right? But for the most part, a lot of the momentum is on the Sixers side. Even though the Raptors have covered those dog spreads on the road, the Sixers have been covering large spreads at home, right? So they just covered 10.5 to the Hornets. They covered, I think it was 8.5 to the Warriors, who they were shorthanded that day, but still it's a large number. So I don't know. To me, I feel like the Sixers got a lot going on here. If Anunoby does play officially, that is a big addition to that team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's probably their most versatile perimeter defender on that team. And that's going to be something where that we need to, I feel like it would move the line in some way, whether it's the line or the total. And so in that sense too, you probably want to wait until you get official status there, unless you have a really good feeling, or if you follow some of the beat writers and you have a good idea of whether or not he's actually going to be in or out, and you could try to beat the line in that sense, then maybe that's something that you can do. But for me, I'm gonna go ahead and stay out of this one. But lean towards the Sixers. All right. So next up, we got did you have anything to say, Joe?
No, I'm good.
All right. Bucks and Pelicans up next here. Bucks are 21-8 on the season. First in the East. First. They're actually first in the whole NBA right now. They're on top of the league. They're coming off a 26-point win over the Jazz, and this is coming off of a huge loss to the Grizzlies. This is the first game of a tough 5-game road trip, though. They have the Pelicans tonight, then they got the Cavs, Nets, and the Celtics on deck. That's a really tough road trip. Pelicans 18-11 on the season. They were on the top of the West for a period, and then they lost 3 games straight here in a row. And that's 3 on the road here. But now they're coming home where they do feel a little bit more comfortable. From the injury perspective, Middleton is out for the Bucks tonight. It seems like that knee is really still bothering him, guys. And he's kind of, especially in that last game, you can see how uncomfortable he was. For the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram is still out. Larry Nance is confirmed. I don't think he's confirmed out, but he's on the unlikely to play. But I think by now, I think by now the Bucks' offensive struggles on the road is pretty apparent. I think you guys probably know that they've been struggling to put up points on the road here. Can the Pelicans take advantage of that, especially here at their house? Matt, let's start with you.
Yeah, so for this one, like you were saying, the Milwaukee Bucks have definitely struggled a little bit on the road this season, and this is a Pelicans team that has now lost 3 games in a row on the road and now coming back home. And one thing that I have been doing is I've kind of been fading teams in their first game back. You know, Ron, me and you have talked about this a good amount. Yeah. And for me, I still think the Pelicans are really missing Brandon Ingram. Until they take that next step, I do think they need Brandon Ingram, part of that squad. He's their closer. He's their guy who can do a little bit of it all. He can post up. He can pass out of the post, things of that nature. And, you know, Zion Williamson has been playing unbelievable basketball. But this is one of those spots where I think the Bucks actually have the defenders necessary to slow him down. You know, as we know, Zion Williamson really isn't an outside shooter. He's very much like Giannis. He loves to attack the basket. He loves to try and beat you off the dribble, and he just attacks that rim, you know. And if he is slowed down, I don't know if I can put my trust fully in CJ McCollum to do kind of what he has done in the past and take over the games or score 25 plus points to put them over the edge. So for me, I'm actually going to be with the Milwaukee Bucks here on -1. You know, the Bucks are 7-5 on the road this season and also 4-7-1 against the spread when away. So not great here, but again, I'm kind of putting a lot of factors into this Zion Williamson. You know, Brook Lopez is actually the leader for Defensive Player of the Year at this point in time. And I actually like this game to go under as well, to Ron's point, saying the Bucks struggle a little bit on the road. And I actually think the Pelicans struggle a little bit in this spot because, again, in those first games back from the road trips, yes, they do have a couple days off, but it generally takes at least 2 games to get those legs fully back under you. And yes, some teams respond differently. But a lot of the teams, it takes a game or 2 to get those legs back to play your best basketball at home. And because of that, I think this is a tough spot for the Pelicans. I think they're facing a Bucks team that is very good defensively. You know, Giannis Antetokounmpo can line up very well with Zion Williamson. And if Zion Williamson gets by him, you do have Brook Lopez in that middle helping to solidify that and lock it down. So for me, I really do like the look of the Milwaukee Bucks in this spot. I also like the look of the under here as well. So for me, I'll be with the Bucks -1.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on this one, Joe? I mean, he brings up a good point coming from a first game home off a road trip, and then also the Bucks struggles on the offensive side of the ball. We can't expect them to struggle the whole season, right? What are your thoughts on this one, Joe?
Well, Ronald, earlier you mentioned Larry Nance and that his status is undetermined yet. Want to know how old I am? I remember when his father was drafted, and that was in 1981, 42 years ago in another week. That's how old I am, sports fans. My friends, I get up every morning very, very early. As a matter of fact, I get up while farmers are still fast asleep in their bed. No BS. I'm up that early. This morning when I got up, I was amazed to see the line in this Bucks Pelicans matchup. I really was. Personally, I thought this line should have been a little bit higher than -1. It went up. Then came back down. Obviously, I saw 1.5 earlier a few hours ago. Went back to 1 as of this show. Excuse me. I know. I'll be honest, guys. I'm shocked that it's not a little bit higher. I really am. Milwaukee possesses the best overall record in the NBA, as Ronald mentioned, guys, 21-8. Let me tell you how good this team is, guys. The other night, they shellacked Utah 123-97. Okay, guys, Nothing big to stare at. Another 26-point victory on a regular NBA evening. But you know what? Giannis and Chris Middleton were not on the floor. They were on the sideline, one with sore knees, one with whatever they were going to put on the friggin' injury report for that night that they didn't felt they need them. That's how good this team is, guys. While Middleton will be out again here tonight, Giannis is expected to be on the floor. They face a struggling New Orleans opponent here. The Pelicans have lost and failed to cover their last 3. I'm well aware of the fact that this team is 12-3 at home as opposed to their away record of a dismal 6-8, but they are struggling badly, folks. While their offense still ranks 4th in the league in scoring, they're getting smoked in transition, guys, and it has been fatal to this team recently. I expect this team to come in very, very tired. Those 3 outings we just talked about across the last 6 days were all barn burners, with one of those in Utah going into overtime. This team is going to be fatigued come the second half, particularly, guys. Mark my words. Offensively, they have the numbers. But, my friends, they face one of the best and most frustrating defenses in the NBA here tonight, and I just don't see them having any success. One trend that really stuck out to me is the fact that the Pelicans, just 1-4 against the spread the last 5 games, played at home versus teams with a winning road record. Take Milwaukee here. Take them to the bank, guys.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think you guys are. This might be a spot where they get that done. It's always tough when you're coming home on the first game off a road trip here. Sorry. And they're on a 3-game losing streak, so the momentum is not on their side at the moment. One thing that I'm going to talk about this on the best bet section, but one thing I did notice is that the Pelicans do play stronger defense at home, but that doesn't necessarily mean their offense is a lot better. It pretty much stays the same whether they're at home versus on the road. I think they're one of the few teams who in that sense don't really change, but do change on the defensive side of the ball. And that's why I'll talk about it in the best bet section, but I'm going to focus in on team totals. Matt, you got something to say? Oh, I think you're on mute.
My bad. One thing I just wanted to add as well is with Larry Nance, actually. And if Larry Nance is out here, that moves up Jackson Hayes. And, that is someone that I actually believe the Bucks can take advantage of a little bit. He doesn't move his feet as well. Larry Nance is a very athletic 4-5, I guess you could call. And without him, then Jonas Valanciunas is that, obviously he's always that 5, but he's someone who does tend to get in foul trouble. So if Joe Val gets in foul trouble, that kind of opens up the floodgates for that middle. Jackson Hayes is one of those guys. He's exciting. He likes to dunk and stuff like that, but he's not that different from Jonas Valanciunas in terms of he's a little hacky. He gets in foul trouble as well. So without Larry Nance there, I actually think it's a bigger aspect than what people believe. And one last thing I wanted to touch on is I looked at the road trips for the Pelicans, okay? So in their road trip, so earlier this season, they were in a 3-game road trip, came back home to face Golden State. It ended up a 219 total, so that definitely went under, okay? Then they had another 3-game road trip, faced Portland at home, and that was a 211 total. Went under again, I'm sure. So those are 2 spots that you can kind of go back and take a look at in terms of the over-under spots. And in both of them earlier this season, they actually went under with the Pelicans at home.
And one thing to add to your note as well, both of you guys, for your play on the Bucks here, when the Pelicans travel from a road game to a home game, they're actually 1-4 straight up, 1-4 against the spread. 4-1 to the under, so that kind of backs both of you guys here, backing the Bucks to cover and win, and then also towards the under that Matt is mentioning here. So this is definitely a spot here that the Bucks could probably take advantage of. All right, so next up, our next game here, we're gonna be looking at oh my God, where's my list? Hornets and Kings. There you go. Thank you, Chris. Hornets and Kings. Hornets are 7-23 on the season, which is dead last in the league, guys. They lost 8 straight. And also, they're playing the second leg of back-to-back games tonight. This is their second game of a 6-game West Coast road trip, so they traveled all the way from the East. Kings 16-12 on the season. They're sitting in 5th in the West. I think that's something that's surprising a lot of teams here, or a lot of people here. 16-12, 5th in the West. I would have thought they were more of a play-in team, but they're really right there in the thick of things here. They've won 2 in a row. They are the much more rested team in this spot, too. They haven't played since Friday. This is, though, one thing that Matt mentioned, a first game home off a long road trip. They're coming off a 6-game road trip, so they've been traveling a lot lately. From an injury perspective, Cody Martin is out. Dennis Smith, Terry Rozier is questionable, while the Kings are pretty much completely healthy. I actually don't see anyone on their injury report right now. This is a tough one to go against, sort of a trend that we've been fading here versus a team that's just a fade overall. So, Joe, what are you thinking? What are you thinking on this one?
Well, Ronald, thank you, by the way. Great, and I love your intros to these. They're just amazing, so informative. Thank you. Guys, I'm going to keep this one very short and extremely sweet, just like me. Sports betting has nothing to do with who wins. It has all to do with who covers. I'm not going to tell you that I expect Charlotte to beat Sacramento here tonight straight up, because I don't. Sacramento took the only meeting this season, 115-108, back on back on Halloween evening on the road. They come into this matchup winning and covering the last 2 outings. They're ranked second in the NBA in scoring, averaging 117.8 a game. They face a defense that ranks 28th. They yield over 117.4 a game. Speaking of their opponent, guys, the Hornets have lost 8 in a row straight up, failing to cover 5 of those last 8. There's very little we could say positive on the positive note about this team, guys. It's all negative, and I try to be as positive as possible on every breakdown as possible. But, guys, there's nothing you can really say in a positive way about the team. However, I will tell you this. There is no way Sacramento should be a double-digit favorite against anyone, no matter how bad the team is. I'm being very honest about that. The Kings have not laid more than 7.5 points at all this season. And Ronald, Matt, I went back to last season because I wanted to double and triple check this. You know, the highest favorite they were last season was 7.5, and they only did that twice. So this is the highest spread they've been in at least 2 seasons. Guys, and I just don't see this team laying 10 points against any opponent, no matter how crappy they are, especially one that's covered 5 of the last 7 outings in Sacramento and 6 of the last overall outings against Sacramento. I'm going to take the 10 points with the doggy here to go woof, woof, take a bite out of the favorite.
Yeah, I think, Joe, I don't know. I have a note here that says the Kings were double-digit favorites against the Pistons earlier this season. Just one game. Okay. They were 10.5-point favorites at one point during that game. They didn't cover that. So, like you said, though, it does go with the fact that they're not covering these large spreads, the double-digit favorites. The other thing to note, too, is Philly was 10.5-point favorites to the Hornets just a few days ago. So if we look at the number here, 10.5-point favorites to the Sixers and then 10.5-point favorites for the Kings. Are they the same level at this point here? I don't know. What do you think about that, Matt? I want to get both of you guys on your guys' take on that kind of look, where you see 2 teams who I feel like one is better than the other. I feel like Philly is the better team versus the Kings, but the line is exactly the same against the same opponent. Does that factor into anything when you guys break down the games? Joe, can you answer that?
I'll tell you what, to me, it always comes down to the number, Ronald. No matter what, a number has to offer me a value or an advantage. And if it doesn't, I stay away. And we're seeing a lot of numbers, I feel, that are inflated right now in the NBA. And I think it's due to the anticipation of who is playing and who is not. I mentioned earlier, before the first breakdown of the roundtable game, of the first roundtable game, that these injury reports are just out of line. So if a line doesn't give me an advantage, then I'm not going to play it. I know we got a question from somebody who said something. Then why are they offering this line out there? Well, I'd like to answer that person and tell them very nicely that, the sports books and the odds makers, they don't put out a line that it's exactly sharp every time. They have to anticipate general public's reaction to a line. So that's the most important thing. Me personally, Ronald, I am not going to play a game that does not give me line. Now, I think there are better games on the board than this, but I unless the line gives me an advantage, I'm not going to play it. There's other things to play and other bets on the board that I feel are stronger.
Yeah. Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
So, with this one, I can definitely actually understand this line when comparing a Hornets team to that of the 76ers, just because, they're stylistically, they're very different. The 76ers run a slower style of basketball. They run I think they have a better matchup with Joel Embiid against maybe Domantas Sabonis or someone along those lines, because, Embiid generally tends to eat against smaller defenders who aren't as physical. And then again, with someone like Sabonis, he can't get in foul trouble because without him, the Kings dip down drastically because he's their rebound guy. He's their assist guy. He gets a lot of points on top of that as well. And then in comparison to this Hornets team, when I look at this, I see this -10 line, and I could see the Kings somehow covering this because this is a Hornets team who they both run a very, very fast pace of basketball. And if you're missing shots and you're running a very high pace, then the game can get out of hand very quick. As for the 76ers, they're a team that runs a little bit of a slower style of basketball. The game's not going to get out of hand as quick, and they rely far more on a defensive presence, with like guys like Thibault as well coming off the bench. And when you have someone like Embiid locking down that middle, it's a little different. So yes, like it is a similar line to your point, but I guess if I were to look at one and looking at the Hornets and the Kings, that's one that I can understand far more from the Kings' perspective, just because I think this game could potentially get out of hand if the Hornets are not making shots. But now with the addition of LaMelo Ball coming back into that lineup, Gordon Hayward coming back into that lineup, like LaMelo Ball is someone who can change any basketball game. So, it's one that I'm not personally going to bet. I actually like an over-under bet a little bit more here. But again, to your point, I can kind of understand both sides just because it's stylistically, it's so different. If that answers the question exactly.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. The different styles, different pace of play affects the line differently. So that makes a lot of sense. Did you have a more breakdown on that game, or was that sort of your breakdown? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So for this one, it's kind of funny because I'm actually going opposite of what I said in the Bucks Pelicans game, and a lot of this just comes down to doing the research because I really do like the look of the over 241 here. I know it's extremely high, and I know we talked about coming in off that road trip, playing that first game at home, but I went back again and looked at the situations where the Kings were coming back off of a road trip. So earlier this season, they were coming back off of a 4-game road trip, and we're facing the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team that is much slower, a team that is far better defensively. The Kings won that game 127-120, a 247 total. Okay. Then they had a 3-game road trip, came back to face the Phoenix Suns, and the final in that one was Suns 122, Kings 117, a 239 total. 2 games that went over their total after a away road trip and their first game back home. Okay. And then again, I know you see this with the 241, and it is high. 241 is a high total, no doubt. But now that the Hornets have LaMelo Ball back, like I was saying before, I think he just changes the game because he is someone who gets the ball and goes so fast, and he does so many different things. He scores, he rebounds, he assists. Again, a little bit of everything. And since returning, LaMelo has had 31 points, 27 points, 23 points. So he's right back to doing kind of what he was doing before he got injured. And it's always unfortunate to see LaMelo go down because he's such a fun player to watch. But on top of that, these are 2 teams that are very fast in terms of pace of play as well. The Kings are 6th in terms of pace of play, and the Hornets are 13th. And the only reason the Hornets are 13th is because they were without LaMelo Ball. And he's the guy who grabs that rebound, immediately pushes it up court, and having someone like Gordon Hayward back also helps as well because he's their outside shooter. He's their spot up shooter. And would I love to see Terry Rozier back in the spot? Yes, I definitely would. But this is also a Hornets team who is 10-5 to the over as an away team. The Kings are 7-4-1 to the over at home. And I think this is a great spot for it. Again, I do think it's very, very high, but this is a game that should be a track meet.
Yeah, and you talk about the addition of LaMelo Ball for the most part. Currently, their pace has picked up even more so than when he was out. And so if we look at a full season aspect, right, they're only 12th in pace, or 12th or 11th in pace. But when he's in the lineup, their pace picks up by 3 or 4 points there. So it makes a lot of sense that you look towards the over here, especially when the Kings already themselves play a fast pace. The problem is how efficient is that Hornets team going to be offensively, and it's been kind of mixed the last few games, but for the most part, I feel like LaMelo Ball should make them more efficient as the season goes on, and the more healthier he gets. But for me, this is another one of those games where there's a lot of counter narratives, right? We talked about earlier, Kings playing their first game off a long road trip. This is historically a profitable fade spot, especially if you add that the opponent is on the second leg of back-to-back games and the home team is the favorite. It's almost like those situational spots inflate the line a little bit, right? Because you're looking at the opponent who's traveling. And they're playing on the second leg of back-to-back games. They add a little bit to the line there. Then if you add that the home favorite has been doing well, but this is their first game home, you would expect the team to be at home playing a little bit well as well. So they inflate the line a little bit more. And that's probably how we get to this 10-point line. But at the same time, that trend is so profitable as a fade. It's hard to go against it, right? The Kings are playing. Sorry, I think it's 2018, 19-40 against the spread for the home team in that spot. When they're the home favorite, they're coming off of a four-game road trip or longer, and their opponent is on the second leg of back-to-back games. So it's hard to go against that, but at the same time, in that spot this season, they haven't been doing too well. And also the Hornets, they've been, even though they haven't been winning games, they did cover a large spread yesterday. I kind of agree here with Joe that this line is a little bit too high, but like I said, there's that counter narrative where I feel like at the same time I don't want to go against that trend here. So yeah, to me this is one that I feel like I'm gonna stay off of. I might want to dive into a little bit deeper, especially from the total perspective, but definitely from the side perspective, I'm probably gonna stay away. This might be one where we look at one of the team totals, maybe Charlotte team total over here, so we don't really have to worry about if they cover the spread or not, but we know that they're going to push the pace and they might be able to be more efficient offensively than they have been the last couple of days, especially with LaMelo getting a little bit healthier. So maybe you look that way, but for me, I'm likely going to stay away from the spread here. So that's the 3 games today, guys. With that said, it's time for the best bets. Let's start with Joe here. Joe, what's your best bet for today's show? And what do you have going on the premium side here?
Oh, Ronald, glad you asked me that. I'm a little shy, so bear with me. My friends, first and foremost, the king of Monday Night Football. We'll do it again tonight for you. Tonight, baby. Rams, Packers. This is the time of year you must follow a proven and documented winning capper. And no capper can do what Jody does on Monday Night Football. Documented, guys. I have this winner posted right now. It's SportsMemo, just $10. Just to let you know that discount on the bowl package, which is you get every single bowl game from the capper of your choosing over at sportsmemo.com, is still available. The king of the bowls, I want you to know, the only capper in the history of this business to get written up by the Wall Street Journal as money bowl season. Only released one bowl game last week. Fresno State, thank you for making me a perfect 100%. And Ronald Matt, sports fans, as a seven-time NBA handicapping champion. That's right, 7 top finishes. Guys, tonight I released one game. Guys, I want you to know I was on a very good NBA hot streak. I finally dropped the game 2 days ago. I stood off NBA yesterday. As you know, that doesn't sit well with me, though. I will bounce back tonight, get everybody paid in pro basketball. I have my NBA odds makers mistake play. I have uncovered a mistake by the odds makers, and today we're going to make them pay together. My releases, odds maker mistake releases, plus 13 units going back to the end of last season. I have it posted for $9 Monday over at Sports Memo. Get both winners right now. Start Christmas week off going 2-0. For my best bet, oh, man, I'm excited about this game. When you've got the 2 teams tied for the poorest record in the Western Conference, sports fans, something's got to give. And I think you're going to see something give here today as the Spurs travel to the Toyota Center to face the Rockets. Both teams enter this matchup with identical 9-20 UGG records. And both teams enter this matchup losing and failing to cover their last few outings. Granted, Houston is on a 6-1-1 ATS run at home, but poor perimeter shooting has really plagued this team of late, guys. It's crushed this team lately. Now, I'm not going to deny the fact that on paper, statistically, they have some better numbers than their counterpart here tonight. However, San Antonio comes off what I feel was a heartbreaking loss in Mexico City a few nights ago to Miami, a game in which they were winning through the first, second, and third quarter, and even to the fourth, and still lost by 10 late, getting outscored in the final stanza, 31-7. Games like that doesn't suit well with teams like San Antonio, my friends. So I look for them to bounce back. I like them outright here tonight, but we'll get into that in a second. I think that they face an opponent that they have had their way with. They've taken 4 in a row, 7 of the last 9 straight up, 7 of the last 10 against the number, my friends. This includes the December 8th, 118-109 win and cover at home. Guys, I like San Antonio, as I mentioned a moment ago, straight up. But just to err on the side of caution, I'll take the points here, and I'm going to take my bookmaker's money. If you follow me here, you will too. Well,
Yep, I was on mute. Yeah, that's a great play there. I think the Spurs really have been playing with some passion here, especially with everyone getting a little bit healthier. They get Pirtle back here for another game as well. He's such a big addition to that team, especially in the post. So, love that look there, Matt. What's your best bet and what you got going on the premium side?
Yeah, so on the premium side right now, I got one Monday Night Football play. I'll have some more going forward. I've definitely got to update my NBA card as the day progresses too. I'll have some plays up as well. NFL, we ended up 5-4 this week, so not in comparison to the prior weeks, it's not nearly as good, but we were still up around 6 or 7 units. Last 30 days, I'm up 49 units in the NFL, number one NFL last 3 days. So still doing very good there, even kind of with a subpar week. And NBA, definitely looking to get back on the winning track. Last week was one of the first losing weeks we've had in a couple. So looking to get back in the positives there. And I think we're going to start good with today's best bet. It's going to be De'Aaron Fox over 30.5 points plus assists. I'm going right back to that Sacramento game and the Hornets game. I really do think that game has a lot of opportunity in terms of point props or same game parlay or anything along those lines. And a lot of it, for me, I chose De'Aaron Fox. I was actually between him and LaMelo Ball. I really love the look of LaMelo Ball tonight as well, because both of these players are very aggressive. They love to attack the paint, and both of these teams are pretty soft in the paint as well on top of that, So with De'Aaron Fox, since returning from injury, he's hit this number in 2 of 3 games and is finally back to getting his full minutes. When taking player props, one thing I want to comment on is when you see high spreads, I do tend to fade away from that, because if the game blows out, you're losing minutes, and every minute you lose, you're losing opportunity for your player to hit his prop. But with this one, I guess that says I kind of think the Hornets will keep it relatively close as well. But with De'Aaron Fox, again, he's hit this in 2 of 3 games since returning, is averaging 21 shots per game, and is also had 19 combined assists in his last 2. So he's starting to get his teammates involved a lot more. He's being very aggressive. De'Aaron Fox is one of those guys where, his point prop today is 23.5 as well. And if you're taking 20 shots, the odds are pretty good that you're going to go over that 23.5 point prop. De'Aaron Fox is also someone who gets to the line a good amount as well. And this is one of those games, the reason I went points and assists is because I just really like the look of guys like Kevin Huerter tonight and guys like Malik Monk on the outside. Again, going back to the pace, the Kings have the 6th pace throughout the NBA, and the Hornets have the 12th. Okay, and again, I expect that to continue to increase now that LaMelo Ball is the point guard. He loves to get that rebound, throw up that outlet pass like I've talked many times before. And, this is a Hornets team on top of that who is 27th in overall adjusted defensive rating, so not very good defensively. And this is a Hornets team who is allowing they're 23rd throughout the NBA in opponent field goal percentage, and they are 29th in field goals given up per game. So when you take all those numbers and you add them to De'Aaron Fox, it's a pretty good look for him tonight. And again, that's why I went the assists as well, because I really think guys like Kevin Huerter, guys like Malik Monk, maybe even Harrison Barnes. He's like the spottiest shooter in the world. But, I think all these guys can have pretty good looks tonight against a Hornets team who is pretty rough defensively. So, again, I'm going back to De'Aaron Fox. This is still a much lower number than earlier in the season or even last year. He's usually a guy who hangs out around 25.5 for this point prop. So, because of that, I like De'Aaron Fox over 30.5 points plus assists tonight.
Yeah, I definitely can't argue with that, especially with the pace of play that everyone is expecting here. So that makes a lot of sense as far as focusing in on the points and the assists, because they're going to be moving the ball a lot, scoring a lot, a lot of opportunities in that play there. And Matt, guys, if you're watching this, you guys need to follow Joe and Matt on Twitter. Matt gave out, he didn't mention this, but Matt gave out some single game parlays yesterday. I don't even know what the odds were, but I know they were plus a lot, and both of them hit in the NFL. So if you guys not only watch the show, but follow these guys on Twitter, because they give out a lot of great information. Matt didn't mention it, but he definitely hit those single game parlays yesterday, big time. So
plus 1,400.
Plus 1,400. There you go. That was only one of them. I know you hit 2.
Yeah, that one was plus 550. I'll take. I mean, I know both are kind of risky in terms of odds, but plus 550 is like a safer one to me usually.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I ran plus 1400 and the plus 550, and both smashed. So it was a good day. It was a good day.
Yeah, definitely. And you shared them too before they, most people they show tickets after they win, you know what I mean? But you were able to put them out there and say, hey, this is what I'm doing exactly, and they hit. So
hey, it's Christmas time. We're trying to put on for the people.
Exactly.
We're trying to put on for the people. That's what it's all about. Everybody eats.
Everybody, yep, exactly. And shout out to the chat here, Nick Cooper, SGA upgraded to probable. That's good information to know. I was wondering why that line and total moved. With that said, I got my little moment here for my best bet. I'm gonna go back to a game that we talked about earlier, the Bucks and the Pelicans here. We talked about the struggles for the Bucks, especially on the road on the offensive side of the ball. Their net rating 14.2 net rating gap between home and road, primarily on the offensive side of the ball there. The Bucks, I believe they're 10-2 to the under. Shoot, my notes is gone. Are 10-2 to the under so far on the road, averaging just 104.7 points per game. They've also gone under their team total in 8 straight road games as well. The Pelicans, I mentioned earlier about how their gap between road and home isn't really their offense, it's their defense. And that's why I wanted to focus on the Bucks team total under. The Bucks struggle offensively on the road. The Pelicans, somehow they're like 8 points better defensively at home. So without having to worry about if the Pelicans are going to struggle offensively going from road to home, we just focus on what we know they can do, which is play consistent defense. And if the Bucks struggle or slow the pace a little bit against this team to try and get the W here against another higher tier team, then that's the way that I think it's going to go. I think it's going to be a low scoring game, just like how Matt said. I think there's a chance that the Bucks win and cover, like Joe said. And if we combine that together, I feel like it's going to be a team total Bucks under. A lot of things that I looked at really pointed in that direction. So it's good that I'm aligned with what the fellas said earlier in their breakdown. So that's the way I will go to the Bucks team total under 114.5. Regardless of what happens on the spread here, I feel like this is going to be a tight, slow-paced defensive game from both teams here. On the premium side, I don't have anything posted yet. Today was it's a bigger slate. It usually takes me longer to get to the games that I want to bet on. So I think I'm probably going to have my premium plays posted sometime around noon or after that. But with that said, that's the end of the show, guys. We got guys. Our next one is Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I don't remember who our guest is, but obviously Joe brings so much knowledge and information and experience to the show here, and that's something that we can't replace that. That's so huge. Matt, obviously, thank you for being the co-host, and good luck until Wednesday, guys. We'll see you then. Peace.